Welcome to Bite Size Games, the podcast where we talk about games that can be completed in 10 hours or less. But today, because we're getting close to the end of the year, 2024, we are actually going to just be wrapping up all of the games that we've talked about. Not all of them, but we're going to basically talk about the best, the most mediocre, and the most disappointing games that we played for this podcast specifically this year. This year we played 13 games total. I won't list them all out here. You can go check our episode list out and check them out if you want to, where we go into more depth discussion for each one. But this one we'll be doing we'll each go a winner, an honorable mention for each of these three categories. With me always, as always, is Phil and Dennis. Hello.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hey,
Earthlings.
how's it going?
How was before we get into the discussion, I wanted to just ask, how was your 2024? Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? Doesn't have to be gaming related, but just overall in general.
It's been like a 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10?
6 out of 10.
It's been a 6 out of 10.
Yeah. All right.
It's not great.
It's been okay.
Could be better.
Ups and downs.
Same.
There was a lot of big events happening. It was an election year. There was a lot of everyone's got personal work life. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of kind of big things, and yeah.
Agreed. There are a lot of big things. What about just
Personal.
personally though, ignoring world events?
Yeah.
Personal life. Pretty good.
Pretty chill year for me, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I would. Well, no, I mean, I had a kid. I had a baby in January, so it's been a very busy year.
Yeah,
for
that's
me.
not chill.
Big life change. So that's nice, but it means I get a lot less time for gaming. But because of this podcast, I've had plenty motivation to play lots of fun games. Like I said, we played 13 games this year for this podcast, which is pretty good. Just a little bit over one per month. We'll see if we can beat that record next year. I think we want to do a little bit more if we can. But yeah, maybe we should just jump right into it then, if that sounds good for you guys.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, let's jump into it.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each category. Again, it's best game, most mediocre game, and most disappointing game. And we're each going to name our personal winner for that category, as well as an honorable mention or, second place runner-up type of position as well, out of the 13 games that we played this year. So first, for best game, I'm going to have Dennis lead us off. What was your winner and honorable mention for best game of 2024?
So I think someone else might have this as well, but my best game that we covered was Animal Well. I chose Animal Well. I mean, I think a lot of people would choose that. It was a pretty popular game and kind of an indie darling this year. There's countless Metroidvania-style games that come out every year. It's a popular indie genre, but this one really stood out, and I think stood out for many. It's got an awesome, mysterious, and interesting world to explore, and puzzles that are very unique and challenging, especially if you're aiming to get those all of the eggs collected and all of the side content that comes out post-game, plus really interesting items that have multiple uses. There's no combat in the game, which is very unique for this kind of a game, and I think it's better for it. It just allows you to kind of explore without anything holding you back. I thought it was rad. Yeah, that is my best game that we covered. Honorable mention, or runner-up, I guess, I would say Hypnospace Outlaw for me, which I don't think anybody else would have that as one of the
you don't know,
standouts.
Dennis? You don't know?
But that for me, regardless of what you think of its gameplay, I think there was so much care and time put into creating that unique, turn of the century, 2000 era internet world, and I still get Chowderman songs stuck in my head randomly, like as I just go about my day, and like it makes me smile whenever I think of Chowderman.
Lots of catchy songs.
Yeah, so that's my runner up there.
Nice. All right. How about you, Phil? Tell us your choice.
It's the same. Animal Well, I thought was the best of the games that we had played, and for basically the same reasons you just said, Dennis. And so I'm not going to really go back into it. But yeah, it's like when I think back, my criteria is largely like, what do I think about sometimes? Like if I'm not playing a game, or if there was a game on that list I'd like to come back to or maybe play again some more, then it's definitely either Animal Well is definitely at the top, I think, at that list. And as far as honorable runner-ups, honorable mentions, I'm going to say Hypnospace is a good one, I think. I think it's an interesting, although it's like a simulation of... Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good choice. But I went with Thank Goodness You're Here, and I think it's because it's kind of a shorter experience, and it's kind of like a one-off fun experience. And as far as like looking back, I just kind of had an overall positive experience playing that game through and through. And I never had like a moment where I got held up and I kind of like had any sort of negative vibe with it, which happened with probably most of the other games, even Animal Well. So yeah, and it holds a spot. Like I'll sometimes think about that song at the end of it, or just like a couple of random things about the game. So they will periodically pop up in my memory bank. So yeah.
Nice. All right. Good. Best game. I think this is no surprise to anyone that we've all chosen, including myself, Animal Well as the winner for this category. So like you said, it's the same reasons, so I won't dive back into that. But it is a fantastic game. Absolutely lots of replayability. Just a really great game overall. For my honorable mention, I actually kind of cheated in the sense that I chose two because I really could not decide between the two of them. Neither are the ones that you chose, though. So I chose Pizza Tower or and Yellow Taxi Goes Room. And these games are both kind of similar in that they're kind of collect-a-thon games in a sense where you go from level to level collecting different things. And I just like them because of like their original take on existing types of games. So like the Pizza Tower is like, Wario Land, whatever it was. And then Yellow Taxi Goes Room is sort of like a Mario 64 or Banjo-Kazooie type game.
I'd say all three of those
3D
games,
space.
including Animal Well, have their own original
right, that's
take.
true. Yeah, so it's true. They're all kind of that along that way. They have this original take. I really liked Yellow Taxi Goes Room. I just had a great time with it. Because the cheer. I think the vibe really got to me. I thought it was just so much happy funness, even though there was some frustrating bits to it. And Pizza Tower was just mayhem and just really original, and I love the art style for it. So yeah, those were my choices. But I'm actually a little bit surprised you chose Hypnospace Outlaw, Dennis. I was when you said that, just because I thought, well, it was a good game. It was definitely a good game, but it didn't feel like
it's not a conventional game, that I guess, in any sort of way.
I think it was just because I felt a little bit, I forget, I think it was like a little bit boring for me or something like that, but maybe that's,
I think
that's the reason for the honorable mention.
When we covered it, I think I was the only one that was like high on it. And even including, we had Mark on that episode, and he also found it. I remember he said it felt like work. So,
right.
The gameplay didn't really do it for him either. So, I think I was the only one really going to bat for it. No, I mean, I can see what you mean in that way, because you are sitting at a computer screen and a virtual desktop, like.
Like you could actually play this at work, and maybe they think you're just working.
It is like a job simulation. I don't know if I brought this up though, but Mark likes playing games like House Flipper and shit. So I don't know what he's talking about.
Which is also like work.
Power washer, like simulator,
right. Farm simulator, and all that.
I played Power Wash Simulator, and I enjoyed that. So maybe that says something to my psyche. That means I enjoy games that simulate work. But
that's a bit meditative though, that game. I think. It's just like calm, relaxed. Well, Hypnospace Outlaw isn't really like that. That was my problem with the game, is that it felt more like work. But I don't think we don't have to talk too much about Animal Well, perhaps, because you can just go into our, if you want to hear more about that game, you can see our main episode. But we all definitely love that game. I'm not surprised at all that we all chose it as the winner.
Yeah, I had a
And
feeling
what was your,
that would be the same.
right? What was your honorable mention, Phil? I forget. I already forgot.
Thank goodness you're here.
Oh yeah, thank goodness you're here. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. That was a quality game.
I'm glad we at least had
Um,
different honorable mentions.
Yeah, that's a big reason why I wanted to include them. Did you guys think Pizza Tower or Yellow Taxi Goes Room belong, or?
Not for me.
Yeah.
We can get into that. But, yeah.
What?
No, well, I mean, not now. Maybe.
These games may show up.
Yeah. I was gonna say they might show up on different lists, so I don't really know.
Okay.
Maybe.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Then, well, that's good. Best game overall. Absolute winners for sure. Animal Well. We don't have any consensus on the honorable mention. We all chose different games there, which is interesting, but good. Let's move on then to most mediocre game.
Okay.
Let's start with Phil.
Okay, most mediocre game. It's kind of tough, but I'm gonna go with. I think I might actually go with Killer Frequency on this.
Okay.
And I hate to say that because I feel like they did something that wasn't really that mediocre, but I think it was just done so mediocrely across the board that I feel like it's the most mediocre game. You know what I'm saying? I commend them on like the concept, but it was just all done on like the complete mediocre basis. Also, well, honorable mention. This is also tough, and I might have to cheat here from like you did, Matt.
Too.
I actually have one, but I feel like now that I'm looking at that one, I'm not sure if that really. I'm tied between Rollerdrome and Still Wakes the Deep, and Rollerdrome because similar to Killer Frequency, I came into those with a little bit higher expectations about enjoying the game, and they both just kind of I don't want to say bored me. They didn't, I didn't hate it, but it was kind of no. Killer Frequency is more interesting, but like Rollerdrome was also kind of like the game. It just got boring quick. And then you still had to finish the game, and I was just like, it's just kind of like
doing for the purposes of the podcast,
just doing you have to finish this and just doing the same thing over and over again. And fortunately, it's not way too long.
And
but
with Killer Frequency, at least you can just jug along without anything stopping you.
At least you can fail or be successful at each of those like murder things, and it doesn't matter. Nothing stops you. And Rollerdrome, like both of these games, I like the concept, and in a way, I feel like these should be my disappointed games. But I like the concepts, but like I just feel like they were just kind of like the marketing tool or something, and it just wasn't done enough to make it like, it's almost like a gimmick of a game in a way. But but both of them in a way. It's like, you kind of have this vibe, you're in this like 70s, like because everyone like sells it in a way of talking about those main points. You're like radio DJ, there's this murder thing happening. Your Rollerdrome, it's like this throwback 80s vibe. It's got cool synth music, and it's just kind of that's it. That you get that all in the first 10 minutes or something, and then just kind of farts out for me.
What about Still Wakes the Deep?
Still Wakes the Deep. When I guess like, when the criteria of like what game do I think about, just kind of like, it was okay. It just, but I didn't really like. I would never come back to it. I think in any way. So, I don't like have like a strong negative feeling, but I would never think I'm gonna come back and like let me do another playthrough of Still Wakes the Deep.
Right.
So that's why it's there.
All right. I'll go next. For most mediocre. So my winner for most mediocre was Dark. I thought this game was just like it didn't have enough going for it. It was kind of just some puzzles that were kind of cool, but not that cool. It had a really great art style, and that was basically it. Like I feel like that's the extent of the real appeal of the game. The story was completely lacking. It really needed a story, I think, to help it. So, yeah, Dark was definitely my most mediocre game this year. And my honorable mention, same as Phil, was Rollerdrome, which was just, not, again, it just didn't have the gameplay there that it needed. It really lacked the gameplay. for that type of game that was required to make that game kind of fun and exciting. It looks really good. Again, the vibe was really cool.
I would say the gameplay was the strongest aspect of Rollerdrome.
Really?
Or did you not get like bored fighting the same like 3 dudes?
Well, let's maybe we should hear your choices, but
yeah, okay.
Rollerdrome did not make my mediocre list.
Okay.
I had Still Wakes the Deep as my most mediocre.
Oh, interesting.
Oh wow, okay. I'm surprised by that actually.
Yeah, I don't know, because it was so like it had an interesting story and cool monster design, but as a game, like gameplay wise, I found that there wasn't much there. It was just kind of go from point A to point B with very minimal puzzle and some boring stealth sections. It was just kind of meh. I mean,
I think the reason I do agree with you completely, but I think the reason why I didn't make my list was just because I really liked the voice acting and the body horror stuff was really cool, but the voice acting was just like, oh, this is like, I don't know. I just
the voice acting was solid. One of the better parts of the game. Yeah, but I think for me it was just the gameplay that brought it down to mediocre.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Sure.
My honorable mention is Dark, which for the same reasons you said. Like, it only got someone at the door. Did that come through? Did you hear that?
A little bit.
With Dark, I feel like it was almost there. You know, it had the cool aesthetic, but it didn't have interesting enough puzzles or enough interesting puzzles. I feel like there was only like a handful, of maybe even like 2 or 3 that stood out, and the rest were kind of just middling. But yeah, that's why Dark is my honorable mention for that. But I do want to come back to Rollerdrome. Because for me, what it was that, I guess, I don't know. That was kind of something I was also thinking of as an honorable mention here. But maybe for different reasons. Because I thought like the concept and the gameplay of that, the slow motion kind of Tony Hawk mixed with shooting gunplay was fun at first. But it wore out its welcome. I don't feel like because the mechanics were a problem. I just feel like it needed more variety more level design, like more levels in general.
Level design. Actually, that's true.
More enemies. More enemies that actually moved. So it just felt like half baked to me, I guess, is the thing.
No, I definitely agree with that, and I felt the same way about the gameplay, that it was interesting. It seemed like it was going to be a really cool game, but I feel like where it dropped into super mediocre for me was it got like you said, it gets kind of boring. There's no depth to the gameplay. I feel like it doesn't add, like, I don't know, even though you get more guns or whatnot, none of it. I don't know. I just found the gameplay kind of boring by the end.
I really want to know how many.
Very repetitive.
Because it did so well, it got like a lot of 9 out of 10s, and I wonder like how many people only played like the first 3 levels before reviewing the game.
Right? You know? Yeah. Probably a lot.
There could have been like a couple things to make that game stand out that I think aren't even the big things, like a couple unique enemies, or like a couple actual other
enemies that have AI
NPC. Yeah, maybe like they come on each stage. There's like a person. It's Thunderhead or something, and he shows up and he's got like a, you know what I'm saying, like a character shows up.
Because there was definitely like there was a Running Man kind of vibe to that.
Yes,
game.
Yeah, but there was no
Running Man is full of like cool bosses.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
But there was none of that like personality, but yeah.
Unfortunately, Roll 7, the developer, was folded this year.
Yeah.
Hey, that's what happens. Fuck around and find out.
I mean, they've been, and apparently I didn't realize this, but they've been around for since 2008.
What
Like,
what
a
do you
long
mean?
time.
Fuck around and find out.
Okay, I actually I feel bad because like I had just been telling you guys about I know the video game.
That's
That
what you
was just
get
me
for trying to make an
commenting.
original game.
I do think the gaming industry is in a shitty spot, and it's like way too.
That just reinforces the
I don't
idea
even. That's a
that people need to make the same shit over and over again. Because
well, no. I was just saying that. I don't actually think it that way.
It is, yeah, I understand. You're just, saying it, but
I'm saying they fucked around and found out. I'm not saying I think fuck around and find out. So.
it was Microsoft's doing though. Like
Yeah.
they obtained the studio from somehow, and then they just shuttered it. And it was weird though, because it's at the same time they said like it was right after they shut down the studio. That's when they said like we need to release better like small indie games that do really well or something like that. But I mean, Rollerdrome, I don't know if it sold very well or not, but to be honest, I didn't think it was that great of a game. But they also did the same thing.
Was it
with Hi-Fi
Microsoft
Rush,
or
which
what?
also
Or
sold
that was
really well.
Yeah, I was gonna say Hi-Fi Rush, but was both of them?
They're different studios,
Right, but-
Hi-Fi
but
Rush and this one.
Microsoft-
But I think they were both. I think this one was also done by Microsoft. I
I
thought
didn't think so, but
maybe not.
Tango GameWorks was the.
Oh, it was Take Two. It was Take Two.
okay. Yeah. Tango GameWorks was
I
Hi-Fi
see.
Rush, which got
okay.
bought up by the
And
Korean
that was
dev,
Microsoft.
Korean publisher.
Okay. Right. So Take Two sold Roll 7, part of Private Division, to some undisclosed buyer, and who shut it down, which is
So
very
the buyer
strange,
shut
but
it down.
I guess I'm not exactly sure. Something like that. It seems a little bit fishy and strange, but anyway, sad for them. Hope all those people who worked all of Rollerdrome and their other games were able to find work
Hey,
elsewhere.
there's potential that they would do the reverse and not shut them down and maybe put more money into it. It might actually do better, in a weird way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't even think that's weird. You get what I'm saying? Like the reverse. If they actually invested more in it, it could be
games
a much
are a
better
big
game.
investment. Big risk.
That was a game where I thought like, ooh, if they do a part 2 and actually have time to finish their ideas, the part 2 would probably be really cool.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I agree. If they had listened to our podcast and implemented all of our ideas, then it would be a really cool game for sure.
Whatever you marketing people, you research people, listen to us. We are the voice of the.
Common man.
I don't doubt
Yes.
that they probably had a lot of the same thoughts that we did, but they just weren't able to get them implemented because of budget constraints or time constraints.
Yeah.
We'll never know the full story, Dennis. I'm afraid.
Most likely. But either way, sounds like Rollerdrome and Dark and Still Wakes the Deep were all kind of on each other's lists in this one. What was the other? There was one standout. Was there, other than Dark, Rollerdrome, and Still Wakes the Deep? Was there anything else?
I said Killer Frequency.
You did say Killer Frequency.
Oh, you said Killer Frequency.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of Killer Frequency, let's go to most disappointing game. I will start this off with my choice. Winner for most disappointing game by a bit of a landslide was Killer Frequency.
Damn.
For sure. And by the way, disappointing doesn't mean it's a terrible or bad game. It just means I was hoping for a lot more out of this. And Killer Frequency definitely takes the cake on that. And that we talked about this. It was our last episode that we did. So if you haven't listened to it, you can go listen to that for the more in-depth discussion. But I think we were all kind of hoping this to be a much better game than it was. It kind of just did everything not half-assedly, but just the quality was not there on most of the concepts, and it was could have just been a lot better. So I was hoping for it to be really good, ended up being not very good, kind of shit. So very disappointed with that. And my honorable mention actually for this game, for this category, for most disappointing was Hypnospace Outlaw, which you chose, Dennis, as your honorable mention for best game. Just because it did have so many great things about it, but the overall experience was a little bit, for me, like we talked about, was kind of boring or work-like, and I thought the main story wasn't all that interesting. And so I was disappointed in it because they had obviously put a lot of work and a lot of passion into it. and it was really funny at parts, and I really enjoyed those parts. But then the overall experience was just a little bit disappointing for me. So that was my honorable mention. So how about you, Dennis, for your most disappointing game?
My winner of most disappointing goes to Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom.
Oh wow, okay.
So little back and forth here.
Yeah.
So yeah, when before we played this game, just seeing images in the trailer, it looked like I was gonna have a lot of fun. I like 3D platformers, in general. I like Mario 64, Crash Bandicoot, all that stuff. But this just kind of rubbed me in the wrong way in more ways than one. Like, partly, I think I talked about it when we covered the game, that I didn't like the way that it was. You were controlling a car, and it was car controls taking the place of traditional, like, jumping and running controls. It just kind of it didn't feel like it gelled well for me, at least. And it was a struggle a lot of the time. But not only that, but for me, yeah, it's a collectathon game, and a lot of 3D platformers have that aspect. But for me, the fun part is not trying to get all of the things. For me, the fun part is like moving through the world and exploring the levels. And right. I feel like this kind of issues that for more just challenges to try and to collect more tokens or whatever it was you collected in that game.
I see.
And I think for the sickos who really like to do that, challenge themselves to get that little coin that's on the top of a slanted roof somewhere, like, it's great for them. It's kind of like a next level collectathon platformer that goes beyond the mainstream ones in that sense. But I kind of prefer, like, just the more, like, chill out, traditional, and enjoy moving through the world kind of platformer. So that's why it was disappointing for me.
Makes sense.
My honorable mention for most disappointing goes to Killer Frequency. Because that's more because the promise of the game and like the description of it hit a lot of notes that sounded like perfect for me and what I would like. It's a horror themed game, slasher horror. It's kind of going after that 80s slasher horror. I don't want to say it is that, and I think that's part of the problem with it for me, is it, while it's like paying homage to those kind of things, it's not, it isn't that thing. It's not a scary game, and it,
not at all.
Yeah, it's not a horror game really in any way. And also just the puzzles not being as intricate as I would have liked. Which is why that's my runner-up for that.
Makes sense. All right. How about you, Phil? Last one, most disappointing game.
Okay, I actually just switched it up on the fly. But okay, most disappointing game is still the same, and I'm going to say Yellow Taxi Goes Vroom, actually, for me.
Was your winner?
Yeah, it's most disappointing game. And basically the same thing as Dennis. Like, I think I expected, you basically said the same thing, like, this M64, something a bit more relaxing. I just remember having so much frustration with the controls and so much frustration playing the game. And it did get better, but like that hump for me was quite a big hump to get over. It took me like hours, I feel like, before I felt like this game was getting comfortable for me. And I don't think that's something I liked. And I kind of like the music and stuff like that overall, but yeah, I just felt like I had so much, almost like Bomb Rush Cyberpunk in a way. Like, just the controls and things kind of just made me like it less than I feel like I should have. And so in that way, I felt like it was the most disappointing game for me. Not like a terrible game, but yeah, highly reviewed, highly appraised game. It's your favorite game, but for me, it's just the same thing. It just didn't gel.
Not my favorite, but it was my honorable mention. Yeah.
Okay, it didn't gel with me and the controls and all that stuff. So that's my choice. And as far as my honorable mention, I did actually have Rollerdrome, but I don't want to say that again. So, Children of the Sun, I guess. Children of the Sun.
Right.
Which
that almost made my honorable mention, Children of the Sun.
Yeah.
What do I have to say about it? It just wasn't enjoyable, and I just didn't really get why people like it. So I don't know, there's an audience for it, I guess, but for me it was just a very disappointing game across the board as far as what the variety in the game and the story,
the lack of variety in the game.
Yeah, the lack of variety, the story, the vibe, it all just kind of was really off-putting, and maybe I'm just not that gothic enough to. I don't. You don't get what I'm saying, but
not
to enjoy this type.
You're not an angsty
I'm not
teen.
an edgelord. Yeah,
definitely comes across. That game definitely comes across like that. And yeah, I mean, if this category had been worst game, and not missed the most disappointing game, then it would have definitely, the winner would have been Children of the Sun for me, for sure. That game,
it's definitely
not great.
My most disliked game that we played.
Right.
But that's partly because those edgelordy concepts, I don't like that stuff in the game.
The vibe was, I didn't like the vibe at all.
I didn't like the sound effects. I didn't like the look of it. I think we'd said this in the originally, that the trailer, it looks interesting, but that's because you're just seeing a short snippet, but like after staring at those like pinks and shitty looking filtered colors and yellows, and it just starts to like wear you down, and it's like, ugh, I don't want to be here anymore. Like,
take me out of this place.
It's like, oh, my eyes.
Yeah.
And the sound effects match that too. They're all like scratchy and it's
die.
Time.
Oh God. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Gosh. Yeah, no, that game was not very good. And it's weird that, or not weird, but it's just funny that you mentioned that the snippets make it look good, but the actual game is shit. And I felt this opposite about Animal Well, in a sense. I feel like the snippets that I saw, like the GIFs or whatever of that game, didn't make it look all that good. It kind of just looked like another pixel art game.
Right.
It kind of just made it look like a Celeste, or even less than that, like not as actiony, but it ended up being amazing. Like when I played it, it was just so good. So, and Rollerdrome is the exact same way. Rollerdrome has these clips that make it look really cool, but it's just not that good in the end when you actually play it.
So it makes you think
that it's really similar. Like you can't, it's like not judging a book by its cover, in a sense, where they make the game look flashy just for these clips that make it look cool, but in the end, and same with Dark. Like Dark was kind of the same way. Like it had this really cool looking vibe.
You just kind of touched on maybe where potentially this indie game market is going. Like I hope, knock on wood, the indie game market doesn't go to shit, but I feel like it might more and more end up being like this. Concepts that just get marketed really well, and the games aren't really that good. And
I mean, we've had a number, like we said, a number of those. I think Rollerdrome was one for sure. Dark is one.
Yeah, it seems good, or like even the reviews. I don't know what the disconnect is.
But there's also like indie games have a lot more room to be like niche type games that are targeting specific types of players. They don't have to be for everyone like a AAA game tries to be.
Sure.
So like,
that's what they need to lean on. Really, they need to lean on that.
Right, finding their audience,
the non-mass appeal.
So, I think so. It's okay if we didn't like Children of the Sun, but there's somebody out there who that game.
I mean, there's clearly a lot of people that like Children of the Sun and Rollerdrome, and go to the Steam review. We know this. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, Children of the Sun. Yes, I can kind of see it just because there's a lot of like high score lists in it. There's a lot, and I guess I don't know if there's that much in Rollerdrome, but I do feel like Rollerdrome is. I feel like people, like what Dennis said, people played the first level and thought it was great, and then they stopped, and then they're like, yeah, this game is awesome.
I especially feel that for
the rest of the game,
for actual like professional critics, that there's you know,
I
they've
feel
got
like
a
they
lot
do
of
that all
games
the
to
time.
cover. It's likely
Right.
that they just played enough of it to get a review out, you know.
Okay, I'm looking at Steam right now. Children of the Sun has a 93% positive review.
That's really
That's
high.
insane in my opinion, based off what I experienced.
It's pretty insane.
So I don't know. You know, yeah, maybe we're just all at 6%, but that seems like a pretty unlikely thing. I think. You know what I'm saying?
You know, I'm yeah, sorry. Yeah, for sure. That is 93% is really surprising.
7%. Yeah, we're in the 7%. So
Yeah, but Steam reviews, they're always, especially for indie games, they're often like the
they're just,
people
like,
the people who
easygoing,
are
right?
the market for that kind
Yeah.
of game, you know, so they're automatically going to like
Right.
it, you know.
There's definitely a
Yeah.
biased thing on the Steam reviews, but all right, well, interesting. So it seems best game winner definitely Animal Well. Most mediocre game, there was some differences there. I don't think there's one clear winner on mediocre, but Rollerdrome, Dark, Still Wakes the Deep, those were all there. Most disappointing seems to be Killer Frequency.
Yellow Taxi got 2 votes.
And what?
Yellow Taxi got 2
for
most
sure.
Oh,
disappointing.
Yellow Taxi got 2 votes. Yeah, that was my honorable mention for best game. So, but for me, it was, I don't know. I had a great feeling when I played that game. It just made me happy, and I think it's part of the fact that I was like, I'm taking care of a baby most of the time when I'm not working, and I was just like really tired all the time. So I didn't want to play anything heavy or anything that like brought me down, which a lot of these games kind of do. Not all of them, but it's a few of them. And so like Pizza Tower is kind of the same thing. So like Pizza Tower, Taxi Goes Room, they're very lighthearted and like fun, silly games. And I think that's kind of why I was in that kind of mindset that made me appreciate them a little bit more, or enjoy them a little bit more.
I have a question. I don't know if we can answer this, but so we've been doing this for a little while now, and we always say like, is this a bite-sized game? Or
Right.
and when we started this, the original criteria for a bite-sized game is just for it to be under 10 hours. But do you feel now that there's a little bit something more to what we would consider a bite-sized game beyond just how long it is? You know, like some kind of common thread that like makes it feel like that kind of game that you can, that has that satisfaction of completing in a shorter amount of time.
Like,
That-
what would you think?
Well, I mean, I think we kind of when our first game of the year. This is actually one that I'm kind of surprised that no
Metroid
one
Dread.
put on their list anywhere. Was Metroid Dread, because it is a really good game. But the reason why, or one of the things we talked about in that episode was that, at least for me, I remember mentioning that this didn't feel like a bite-sized game, even though you could complete it under 10 hours. It didn't feel like a bite-sized game because it was really challenging. It kind of felt like a very, very short Dark Souls game or something like that. In some senses, like I remember just getting really frustrated with some of the bosses and just like struggling, like with the difficulty at some points, and so that's one reason why I didn't feel like it was a bite-sized game. So for me personally, I do feel like now bite-sized game is more than just the amount of time it takes to beat. It's also just the kind of feeling that you get from playing
Well,
it.
how would you feel
that's
about
what I
humanity?
was getting at.
Humanity.
Well, that was like a
Humanity-
15-hour game.
Yeah, that was at least. Like
That's
something
true.
Yeah.
Bite-sized, Humanity was not a bite-sized game just because of the length more than the difficulty, though. I think
So
if it had been shorter, I would have been okay.
of
with
the list,
reason.
the 13 games on our list for this year, would you say that Metroid Dread was the least qualified to be a bite-sized game, or least bite-sized feeling?
Yeah, I guess so.
I guess.
It might even be Animal Well though, but yeah, Metroid Dread probably.
Okay.
Just because Animal Well,
You
can
start
spend
getting that
so much
feeling
time in it.
when you start getting that feeling like you're playing a game and you don't know when you're supposed to be done, but like you're like, I've already played like 6 or 7 hours, and I'm like, I don't feel like I'm close to, you know what I'm saying? You hit that point where you're not close to beating the game, and you're like 7 hours into it, and it starts kind of like, when you have 10 hours in mind, it starts to kind of like dread on you a bit, like, oh man, this is gonna end up being a lot longer. How much more do I have? You know what I'm saying? So Yeah, Dread definitely was up there. Yeah, it took me the longest to beat, I think, out of the three of us. So
I think so. I think it was like I think
Yeah,
it was
same.
like just under 10 hours for me or something like that.
Yeah, I would agree. I
So-
would agree with that. But so, which would be the most, if you had to?
the most bite-sized,
not necessarily
cookie-
shortest, but because I think the
Right,
shortest
the
is
most
probably
appropriate
the exit.
who wins the
bite-sized
cookie?
game. I mean, to me, I feel like it would have to be Thank Goodness You're Here.
Yeah.
Or, Thank Goodness You're Here, probably.
Phil, you think the same?
I kind of think and when you just talk about, we're just thinking really the most bite-sizable, the most amuse-bouche of the games.
What?
I think it's I think
Amuse-bouche?
that's French for like appetizer.
Oh,
Hey man, I'm trying to get fancy here.
I've never heard that word, actually. I'm uncultured.
You are uncultured.
Yeah.
Watch some cooking shows.
I'm gonna look that up and call you out if it with some text when I edit this if it's wrong.
Somebody, it probably is wrong.
Amuse-bouche?
A moose boost. Okay, a moose boost. The people, the cultured people will know what I'm talking about. Okay,
All right.
but yeah, I think
Amuse-bouche.
I think Thank Goodness You're Here was like it was like very whimsical, easy to short, and just like breezy to go
Which
through.
game?
Thank
Thank goodness you're here.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd probably say the same of all of them, not just for being short, but just for being like a breezy playthrough, and a satisfying feeling when it's over.
I would also. I mean, if we're gonna, we actually this should probably be
Tacoma's actually a pretty
I was
decent
about to
one
say,
too.
yeah. I feel like if we
that
had
would
this
have
as
been
a
my
category,
honorable mention.
Honorable
Tacoma,
mention.
yeah.
Yeah. Honorable mention would have been Tacoma, which is one I'm actually really sad didn't make any of our lists for best game or anything like that. Just because Tacoma was a really good game.
It was maybe it's almost too like good in a way, like too realistic.
I know why it didn't make my list because I was disappointed with the ending being too positive and happy.
Right.
The ending was a little bit of a softball.
I wanted like a chest burster to come out of my face. Or
Wanted to be dead, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Find a room where they're all hanging from the rafters.
But
the AI is taking over the
that's
ship,
just
and
me.
it's dead. Yeah.
So just to mention the other games that we didn't talk about that we played this year, I guess there weren't many. Well, the Exit 8 didn't make anyone's list. Tacoma, like we just said, didn't make anyone's list. I think that's it. Thank Goodness You're Here was on the list.
That was an honorable
everything
mention.
else was on the list.
Metroid Dread
So
didn't.
We actually covered a lot of the games,
Yeah.
surprisingly.
True. Yeah.
Exit 8, I don't know where to put that. It was a very, very short game.
Yeah.
I
didn't dislike it. I just felt like
I have no feelings. Maybe it's like how I feel about Japan right now. It's just like there's no
there's no way out.
It's like walking through that subway. That's exactly what it was like. A clinical white subway exit room. It was just like, there's no. I'm looking for the exit.
It felt like it kind of felt like a demo or something. I don't know. It was a cool game, but it was just very short.
Yeah.
Obviously, that was the shortest game out of all of them we played. So
I think
must have been.
I think it took me a bit longer, but
I think it was like an
definitely
hour.
like 1 hour. Yeah. But anyway, well, I guess that'll cover it for our wrap up of the year. Is there anything else you guys wanted to add?
Any games you're looking forward to in 2025?
Good question. For this podcast in particular, I don't actually have no idea. We have games, a few on our list.
Yeah.
That we want to play, but I won't. I think our next one is going to be that'll probably be their first episode of 2025. Is the what is it again, Dennis?
Contra?
Yeah, Contra.
Yeah.
The new Contra
Operation
game.
Galaga.
Yeah.
Galuga.
Yeah. So I am looking forward to playing that, but I'm not.
Is that made by Konami?
It's made by Way
published by Konami?
Forward, but published by Konami.
Yeah, well, Konami can suck my.
What? Say it, Phil.
Suck my kiss. What's
Suck
that
my Galuga.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I don't know what's coming out in 2025. Really, I feel like I don't have anything that's like obvious that I'm looking forward to.
How about you, Dennis?
If the sequel to Hypnospace Outlaw is coming out in 2025, that's
It's supposed to be a
something.
very different game too, I think.
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
It's gonna be like Wolfenstein in hypnospace or something. Like
Right.
Yeah, as far as like bite-sized games go, or things that might fit into that category, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
I feel like we have a very long list of games that we want to play, and it just keeps getting longer.
Yeah, we're
and
starting a whole new
more
backlog.
games. Yeah, more games keep coming out that are short, and which is great. Like I think it's a really good, and I don't know what's the word, like environment for right now, current environment for short games. There's a lot of them, like a lot of them coming out. A lot of them are really good. So we're pretty lucky to have all these games that we can play. And recent, like they're not like old. Most of them are pretty recent.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to 2025, which I guess it'll be a while before we're back on. We're back on, I think.
Maybe not too long. I am going to the U.S. We are all located in Japan once again, and I'm not moving, but I'm going to the U.S. for about a month to visit. So maybe we could do it. Well, it depends if I get much time to play, but we could play Contra. I could try to finish Contra. Maybe we can do an episode while I'm there. Although my camera will suck.
And your mic will suck. And
It'll be from my Airbnb place.
If everyone has a Steam
And
Deck
Mike will
and
suck
they
too.
want to send one in to Bite Size Games, feel free to contact us.
Donate.
Donate a Steam Deck for a good cause. We'll thank you and on the air or something like that.
all right.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, it's been a great 2024. This podcast has been a lot of fun. We're almost at our 20th game review. We've done over 20 episodes because of the sidebars that we've been doing, but we're almost at our 20th episode of game reviews. So that's really cool. We started in 2023, like almost the end of 2023.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And so, we're going strong. We're still having fun. If you're listening, please, give us a follow on Twitter or Spotify or whatever that you use. Would be appreciated. We are at bite-sized games _ on all social media, and email is bitesizedgames.info@gmail.com if you want to write into us anytime. But yeah, thanks for listening. Dennis, Phil, anything else from you, or all good?
I'm all good.
Just be good, people. Be good.
Yeah. Have a good end of the year. Be safe. Don't drink too much. Play some fun short games. Play Animal Well, obviously. If you haven't yet, that's our choice. So, yeah, enjoy, and we'll see you in 2025.
And remember,
Bye-bye.
no matter how brief,
Oh, right.
every gaming moment is a chance for greatness.